Bad girl blue.
All I know is that a nice girl should be singing and playing in the church. She need to go where it is sanctified. You just come on in here and get yourself the Bible and read one verse out of that. Add yourself some music and you got a good church song that the peoples will like. The singer is able to find an outlet in the house of God. If you sing from your heart in a sanctified place, at the end of the service you will hear, "Amen." And tell the truth, girl. Rise from the congregation when those songs show Christ your everyday experiences. Don't let him catch you in the whiskey store. Said he was coming, you'll never know. You want to be ready when Jesus comes. Let Jesus find you in the church. You tell them girls that.
The one girl we did think was great was Ethel Waters. She always came along with some good tunes, and she didn't just sing the blues. She always had good material that we thought was classy. That, in our opinion, placed her above the average blues singer. We also thought she was more attractive than the other blues singers. She had everything in her favor, and she outlasted all of them. That speaks for itself, because them other blues women, they become what they sing about.
How do you like me so far? We drove back, holding hands, not saying a word. I was busy being in love. The last thing I wanted to do was to go to work. Bo had to work at 5 p.m. Our show was at 7, which was a 2-hour street dance. It would be fun. I could visit Bo after the gig. Maybe I shouldn't. He would be busy. He said he'd come down to our gig at the town tavern the following night. I could wait, but barely. The fact that I don't do waiting was becoming apparent in the extreme. He'd call the next day, or at least I hoped he would. Outdoors meant blue jeans and cowboy boots, my favorite way to dress, comfortable. I didn't have much time to get ready and regroup. I'd been out all day. I needed to lie down for an hour, but I couldn't sleep because of the excitement to see Bo again. But at the same time, he had conjured up my fear demons. There were so many. I felt like I was hanging from a vine, swinging from tree to tree, not knowing which one to land on. Did he really mean what he said? Swing. Did he want to see me again? Swing. Is he different from the others? Swing. Oh, I'm sure he does like me. Swing. I mean, why would he go through all the trouble of lying? Swing. Oh, God, I am so fucking scared. Swing. He lives in Port Townsend, and I live in Seattle. Swing. How will that ever work? Swing. You would think just the panic I was feeling would have exhausted me enough to sleep. But it had the opposite effect. I couldn't count sheep because there were too many swinging vines in the way. So I just lay there, miserable, waiting for my next encounter with Bo. The fitful hour crawled by on its hands and knees. It was time to deal with the upcoming show. It was at the moment I realized I hadn't seen or heard from Nina. Hell, why should I worry? As long as I had the band money, I saw everyone eventually. I wish I had gotten some much-needed sleep. I called Paula and told her what was going on, how I couldn't stop thinking about Bo. Paula called it the Bo glow. Well, whatever it was, I had to get on with the business at hand. It was time to get ready for the show. I got to the stage 45 minutes early. I always do. It's how I find my rhythm. Everyone is different. The band gets there early because of sound check. Paula loves to show up 2 minutes before, appearing while the band is playing the opening number. AC is usually there before me, patrolling the perimeters. Lucy is in the closest bar, fortifying her nerves with liquid courage. Nina always rode with me because she didn't own a car. Chrissy was habitually late. She would appear halfway through our first number. She'd be fighting with her hair, especially her bangs, to the last bloody minute. I had learned to accept all of this. The only other option would be admittance to the State Puzzle Factory. This was going to be fun. How couldn't it be with the hundreds of people in the streets? I love outdoor shows. They are more festive and less gloomy than a dark bar. My gypsy caravan was trickling in, staying true to their inner clocks except for Chrissy and Lucy. Both looked drunk and sunburned. This could be trouble. I took a deep breath before I investigated. Wow, looks like you two dames got some sun. Where you been? Chrissy straightened up a bit before speaking.
We got some lunch and went horseback riding. Lucy's never been on a fucking horse before. Can you believe it?
Lucy smiled a crooked half in the bag, aren't you proud of me, I'm so brave smile, and then said,
Oh, honey, it was just beautiful. We rode around Discovery Bay. Thought we saw you over there.
I knew she was changing the subject. Yeah, I was with Bo, the bartender. Chrissy started in.
His hair is too fucking short. He looks too Jewish. I had a Jewish boyfriend once. Jesus, I ate like a fucking pig. He never stopped cooking.
No one is perfect, which Chrissy never lets you forget. I could feel my face getting red while my back was stiffening. My claws were starting to come out. What she said was landing in my heart and my gut, which seemed to be attached after a very long void in my life. Tears appeared out of nowhere. I was trying to breathe so that I didn't scream and pull her bangs out. I hardly knew Bo, yet I felt overly protective. The other Chrissy characteristic that upset me was her annoying habit of finding some way to relate whatever I happened to be talking about to her own personal experience, forgetting I had started the chatter in the first place. It not only cheapened my experience, but it stole any thunder that I might have brought to the conversation. At the moment, I had to keep control. We were going to sing in just minutes, and I had a whole other problem to deal with besides my hurt feelings, like Chrissy and Lucy being drunk. I tried to remember the philosophy of martial arts training. The defense that is most effective is when you give way to your opponent's rageful attack. This strategy turns your enemy's own strength against them. I was waiting for a huge mouth to appear and scream back at them. I took a deep breath and looked at Lucy. She immediately recognized the signs. She knew I was coming in for the kill. Lucy was smarter than Chrissy, or maybe not as drunk. When Chrissy took a breath, Lucy jumped in to the rescue.
Oh, honey, I think he's real cute.
I paused and then decided to ignore Chrissy's last few statements. You guys seem fairly drunk. Do you think you will be able to do the show without any slip-ups? Chrissy was on me.
I can do this fucking show in my sleep. Jesus, so I had a few drinks. I'm fucking fine. I can't believe you have the fucking nerve to call me on my drinking. You're no fucking saint.
At this point, I was still in denial about the severity of my boozing. However, I knew I was being a hypocrite, and because what Chrissy said was true, it cut me to the quick. She was being vicious, and I had to force myself to stay above the knee-high muck, which was no easy task with hurt feelings. I had to do a quick inventory so that I had the upper hand with her. It was true. Sainthood was not a word used to describe me. But I was very cautious about booze and singing. I knew the two of them to be a potentially lethal combination. I went through extraordinary lengths to walk the line of mildly buzzed and fucked up. I took the I'm just worried about you defense. Chrissy, I'm simply checking in and making sure you two are okay. The outdoor stage is shaky. You could fall off and hurt yourself. This wasn't completely true. I was more concerned about them fighting with each other than falling or fucking up. They were always best friends until they had one too many, and then it was bitchamania. We couldn't afford the distraction. I had to drop the subject. There was nothing I could do about it now. The band was playing their opening number, which meant I was 5 minutes away from singing the first song. I tried to shake the cheap drama and hurt feelings off. It was time to enter a new headspace. The rhythm was picking up. The air had become a little thicker and pace quicker. The changes happened before every show, no matter how small. We had the crowd from the first note. They were ready. We opened with one of my favorite songs penned by a local musician, Ain't Gonna Cry No More. The slide guitar work would go on for a couple of minutes all by itself. The slippery sounds smoothly sliced through the open air. Then the band would jump in with the street parade beat from New Orleans. Every time I sang that song, it made me dance. The rhythm reminded me of something familiar, wonderful, passionate, and old, but I didn't know what. Maybe it wasn't a memory at all, but a feeling I had at one time, or maybe a culture or a climate my genes remembered from another life. Whatever the faded memory was, it made me feel so good that sometimes I just had to cry. If there is reincarnation, I know I lived a couple of those lives in voodoo country, either somewhere in the bowels of Africa or in a storefront on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Spinning around, I grabbed the mic and started in with the lyrics that meant something to me. Well, I ain't looking back, and I won't even try. I'm just a-heading down the road saying bye-bye, baby, bye-bye. 5 voices joined in harmony singing the chorus, Ain't Gonna Cry, as I would weave in and out of the lead vocal. Oh yeah, honey, not another tear in my eye. This time I mean it, honey, I ain't gonna cry. It was too bad the audience couldn't see the real entertainment, the show that was going on behind the scenes. Right before we hit the stage, standing behind me were the dynamic duo. Lucy had bent over and hissed into Chrissy's ear.
Don't step all over my harmony parts this time, honey. I'm getting a little tired of it. I sing the tenor part.
Chrissy turned brighter red than her already sunburned face, catching Lucy's arm, pulling her down to Chrissy's size. Out of clenched teeth came her comeback.
Yeah? Well, why don't you try to sing tenor 10 or 11 fucking miles away from here?
Most people are on a slow burn before they blow up. A lot has to happen before people let go of excess steam. That's the funny thing about alcohol. It shrinks the slow burn process down to seconds. You can be fine 1 minute and then looking for a machete to cut someone's head off because they looked at you cross-eyed. Chrissy and Lucy were the best of friends 2 minutes prior. This behavior shocked a lot of people, but I was used to their ways. Now that doesn't mean I didn't get upset. I would be very upset, but I was so busy putting out the fire that I couldn't let go of the fucking hose. Chrissy stayed a bright shade of red for the first 20 minutes of the performance, but her mission was still incomplete. I watched her inch her way methodically to the other side of the stage where Lucy was singing backups to AC's lead vocal. It took 10 minutes, but Chrissy was focused. Coming up from behind, once again pulling Lucy down to her height, Chrissy yelled into Lucy's ear for anyone within 3 feet of her to hear.
Listen, you fucking cow. I'll get on a fucking stepladder and climb to the top no matter what fucking shoes I have on and claw your fucking eyes out if you don't back off. You won't be good for anything but selling pencils when I get done with you. Then I'll tell your old man that you fuck around on him.
Lucy had gone white. I don't think she believed the pencil bit, but I knew she believed Chrissy would rat on her about running around. On top of that, Lucy was fairly chicken shit. She tried to act tough, but none of us ever bought it. Chrissy wasn't chicken shit, and she had a mean streak. She had cut her smoke-stained teeth on much tougher situations than ours and knew how to protect her territory. The fact Lucy was 6'3" in high heels and Chrissy was 5'3" in high heels hadn't stumped Chrissy for 1 minute. When it came to revenge, Chrissy always had a plan. I thought the latter bit was pretty clever for spur of the moment. It wasn't a unique experience having 2 women on stage fuming. Nina and I did it quite often. I would endure it like nothing was wrong until Nina decided it was all right to talk to me again. These women handled their fight differently. Lucy was barely singing backups to Chrissy's lead vocal. It was her only revenge. The payback was lost on Chrissy because the way she was getting even was by singing her ass off. Watching the scenario, I again remembered another road rule. As soon as the booze wore off, so would the bad feelings between the two of them. In the meantime, everyone but Paula and I missed the fight. The women were busy entertaining, but Paula never missed much. She saw the whole thing coming down. Minutes before the standing ovation, Paula leaned over to me, laughing.
Welcome to the blues. We are not good girls.
Amen.
Oh, I was shouting a while today. That was cause of me thinking about my troubles. When your burden get heavy, you're supposed to pray and shout and praise God. Whenever I feel like praising God, I just go praying and read my Bible. And I'm just as happy as I can be. I enjoy it. I be just, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus. I be as happy as I can be. And you can hear me from here to the road. I just won't be caring who's hearing me right then. I really feel happy. I sure do. Don't need none of them evil spirits or that white powder to make me feel good. No, sir. Just shout and praise God.
I guess some people do it different. Lord, take Noah Lewis. He used to blow the hell out of that harp. He could play 2 harps at the same time, through his mouth and nose, same key and same melody. You know, he could curl his lips round the harp and his nose was just like a fist. Noah, he was full of cocaine all the time. I reckon that's why he could play so loud and he was good. He'd say, "Gus Cannon, I play so loud that God himself will hear me." I'm pretty sure he did too. So I guess in a way, he'd be playing for God.
Wild women get the blues. After the gig, our adrenaline was still pumping, and we thought we would check out what else was going on. Bo had told me that afternoon he made previous plans or else he would be there. Previous plans sounded ominous to me. It could only mean one thing: another woman. I was starting to swing again, looking for the closest vine. At that point in my life, I felt like I couldn't stand for one more disappointment. If things didn't work out with Bo, being a lesbian was looking more attractive all the time. It was Saturday night, and for once, AC was restless and ready to rock and roll. "Let's find a party. I'm not ready to go to bed yet. Feels like I've got a wild hair up my ass." We both knew how rare that hair was, and I wanted to be a part of it. She was getting more excited. "Let's do a little bar hopping. We can check out the competition." I was ready. "Let's go." When AC let down her hair, there was no one who was more fun than she was. I wonder what made her so uptight the rest of the time. Maybe AC was afraid if she let go, there would be no stopping herself. Or if she let herself truly care, the pain of it all would break her heart. That characteristic was one we all suffered from in varying degrees. It's just AC seemed to deal with hers differently than us. We numbed out with one fix or another. AC did it by appearing removed and, of course, with food. The problem for me was I got sucked into the fun AC every time, and then when it was time to be her cool, collected self, keeping me and the others at a distance, it always hurt my feelings. I still hadn't learned the lesson of admiring her wild and warm side from afar. We slipped into a bar about a block away, a place called the Back Alley. It was located in an alley off the end of the main street. As soon as we walked in, some guy recognized AC and beelined for her.
"Hey, I saw you down the street. You were great."
AC loved attention and was bathing in the compliment, knowing there was more on the way. "Well, thank you. I've been doing it a long time." The stranger was excited he was being acknowledged at all.
"I've been a fan of yours for a long time."
AC was basking in the complimentary light. "That's so nice to hear."
"You know, there's a party at my friend's house. He lives just a few blocks from here. You fabulous women interested in joining me?"
I don't think he cared if I showed up or not, but I didn't let that ruffle my feathers. A party's a party. Parties mean free booze, and if we were lucky, free drugs. AC looked over to see if I was interested. She saw I was, turned to the guy and said, "Of course we're interested. It's been a long night. Would we be able to hitch a ride with you?" Mr. Stranger's name was Walt. He was anxious and his mouth was doing some quirky things, wiggly sort of, probably coked up.
"I was hoping you'd ask me for a ride."
Wiggle, wiggle. Walt was attractive in a wiggle kind of way. 5'10", he had a solid look to him, like he probably worked out. Yet another horny middle-aged man somewhere around 47 to 50 years old that we seemed to frequently run into when working the clubs. His face was animated, framed by mega hair. Each hair fighting for more space, not enough room on his head for all that hair. His was graying. As an afterthought, Walt said,
"By the way, I play the harmonica."
With this new information, any attractiveness I saw in him went flying right out the window. I even reconsidered going to the party for a hot minute. But the seduction of a free buzz was stronger than my fear of listening to a bad harmonica player. We were off. It was your typical party house. The carpet had seen better days. Some parts had worn through to whatever it was lurking underneath. Some kind of wood, I think. The pots and pans on the stove had been burned beyond recognition, and of course there were dirty, mismatched glasses on a white enamel sink. My first impulse was to wash the dishes. My second impulse was to find cocaine. The second impulse turned out to be stronger than the first one. The party was fun, more fun than I thought it would be. AC and I had a good time together. She didn't go out often. When she did, she was hell-bent on having a good time. I did my usual social thing. Found the free booze and filled a semi-washed water glass retrieved from the sink. I wanted to get to the booze before anyone else, just in case there was someone at the party that drank more than I did, leaving me without a third, fourth, or fifth drink. Walt had cocaine, so I found myself getting really interested in the history of the harmonica and why it was so important to American music. Before I knew it, 4 a.m. was the magical hour and the party was winding down. But AC wasn't quite ready to go down and took it upon herself to keep the party going. When hanging up her coat, she had spotted a Kirby vacuum cleaner in the front closet. It turned out AC sold Kirby's in the beginning of her career to support her singing habit. It brought back memories. I was so good at the Kirby thing. I sold 6 in one day. That was unheard of. I had a scam called the contest close. The way it worked was you get the customer down to one reason they can't buy a Kirby. Then get them to commit to the reason. For example, you say something like, "So what you're telling me, Mr. Potential Buyer, is that you would buy one of these babies if you had the down payment." Hopefully, Mr. Buyer says, "Yeah, that's right." Then when I was ready to leave, I'd call into the home office and say, "Mr. Buyer said he loved the Kirby but can't afford the down payment." "What's that, Mr. Regional Manager? You'll let it slide so I can win the contest?" I'd slam down the phone, grab Mr. Buyer's hand, put a pin in it while I was screaming, "You don't have to pay the down payment!" On one sale, I pinned a man back in his recliner while I waved a pin in his face, telling him to sign so I could win the contest, and he did. It was typical for a buyer to call a couple of hours after the sale, completely flipped out, and ask if they had really bought a Kirby from me. Party lagging? Good time for AC to do a demo, a 4 a.m. Kirby demo. She wrestled the Kirby out of the front closet. AC and I tried to gather everyone in the living room. That was no small task. Each cluster of humans had their own agendas. We were firm. AC was in the sales mode. We managed to get most of the party into the living room where the demonstration would take place. AC delivered the entire pitch. She was plugged back into the Kirby flow. It was old home week for her. She jumped right in, sucking out Kirby information from the dusty corners of her brain. "Look at this polyurethane tubing. It's the same type of plastic used in the space shuttles, guaranteed for life. Then there's the handy butler attachment. You can attach the butler to your waist, leaving your hands free to clean. Let's not forget the drill. No more rummaging around that rusty old toolbox, and a feature I use all the time, the buffer for polishing my car. You can use the same buffer for shining your shoes. Or, if you're not into either of those, how about using it as a floor polisher?" Even the most cynical partygoers were starting to pay attention. I mean, could all this be true? AC knew she had our attention. Walt had even stopped playing bad harmonica. She picked up the pace. "If you don't have floors or if you don't polish them, well, no problem. The Kirby comes equipped with a rug shampooer. Do you know how much money you can save by not renting a rug shampooer?" We were trying to add up all the money we would save, but I think it was a waste of time. This didn't look like a crowd that shampooed their rugs much. AC wanted to demonstrate. "You can talk all you want, but the proof is in the pudding." Or in this case, the dirt is in the demonstration pad. AC went to work. "I'm going to pull dirt out of this rug, showing you what the old vacuum left behind." We let that one slide. The Kirby she was using was the only vacuum cleaner in the house. What the hell? There was nothing more exciting than watching a machine compete against itself. She showed us some serious dirt. "Now I want to show you something else. The scalp massager. Won't that feel great after a hard day at work?" Everyone wanted to have that attachment demonstrated. There were some other uses coming to mind. Now for the last demonstration, the mattress test. We stumbled upstairs. AC set up in Walt's bedroom. Let's use Walt's bed. He's not using it right now. Walt had passed out on the living room floor, harmonica in hand, somewhere around the second lifetime warranty pitch. It was now 5 a.m, but we had to see this for ourselves. AC pushed and pulled the handy butler attachment several times back and forth across the mattress. While performing the demonstration, AC informed us of some gruesome facts. This is where the bacteria lives. This is why we get sick all the time, our own dead skin. She finished, then opened the compartment that held dust, dirt, and now dead skin. Some poor slob yelled from the back of the room,
Get out of here. That ain't dead skin.
Boy, were we sorry about that statement. It compelled AC to pull out her handy lighter. It was time for the dead skin is real demonstration. She put the flame to the dead skin sitting on top of the demonstration pad. It started to smoke.
What the hell is that? Get that shit out of here. It smells like burning flesh.
She smiled. You're absolutely right. It is. AC had made her dramatic point and stunned the group. The show and the party were over. We were a hit. AC and I got a lift back to the motel. It had been a long day for me. So much had happened. I was exhausted and drunk. I don't think AC was feeling any pain either. Not a word was said between us during the ride back. All I could think of was a good night's sleep. There was just one small hitch. Mr. Stranger dropped us off, said goodbye, and drove away. We walked/stumbled up to the lobby doors, which were fucking locked. We rang the bell, called the phone, pounded on the door. No response. I looked at AC. I was in a panic. Now what do? It's 6 a.m. My car keys are in the fucking room. Don't worry. It'll all work out. AC seemed awfully cheery. Nothing like a little demo to get you in a good mood. It was then we finally spotted the sign on the front door of the motel. Open at 8. There we were. AC was in full stage makeup and sequin dress. Secondly, there I was in my full stage makeup with tasseled two-tone cowboy boots and skin-tight jeans. AC looked like an overweight black Dolly Parton. I was the equivalent of a female impersonator doing Buck Owens. This was all taking place in a town with a population of about 1,000 people during its peak season. Don't worry about us, folks, just a couple of hookers roaming the streets. That's just what we did until the motel opened its doors, roam the streets. It was times like these I thought drinking wasn't such a good idea. After AC and I wandered up and down the 2 blocks of Main Street, we realized maybe waiting at the motel would be the best idea. Maybe someone would come earlier and let us in. It was worth a try. We made ourselves as comfortable as you can in tight sequin clothes that you've been performing, drinking, and doing drugs in all night. AC and I sat huddled together in the doorway of the Tides Motel. All I could think of was Bo. Bo the bartender is pretty special, don't you think? I do, Lena. He's a good one. Kinda scares me. I think he really likes me. What scares you? I don't know, maybe because I can't find anything wrong with the guy. AC started to laugh. Give it time. You'll find plenty wrong with him. He's a man. I knew she wasn't lying. Then a couple of cars drove by real slow, not believing their eyes. Must be what the stars feel like in Beverly Hills, except they're probably inside their houses when people come by to gawk, not sitting huddled in the vestibules outside of their fancy homes. I've never told anyone this, but my last boyfriend ran around on me a couple of times, once with a singer that we know. I was shocked. He seemed to really like her. But more than anything, I wanted to know which singer, but thought the specifics of the affair might be too painful for AC to talk about. I loved him. He treated me good, gave me anything I wanted, and don't forget he stuck with me while I was sick, which meant a lot to me. I don't know, some things you just have to put behind you. Wow, I can't imagine ever putting anything behind me. I mean, nothing like that. Any man I've been with hasn't lasted past 6 months. AC gave me a look of sadness. When you fall in love, it won't matter if the guy's legs are missing. There are no rules when it comes to love. I laughed a little, the kind of laughing you do when you don't really feel like laughing. I can't imagine staying with a guy that runs around on me. AC stiffened up with my last remark. Well, maybe life is filled with trade-offs. You can't have everything as perfect as you imagine it to be. You'll go crazy with all those false expectations. I'm always doing something that might not be on my top 10 list of favorite things to do. Somehow I knew she meant being with the show. I thought I should change the subject. I sure hope Bo doesn't get up early. Jesus, it would be awful if he saw me sitting here like this. I don't know. I think we look pretty cute. AC had that Kirby glow. You're still high from your potential Kirby sales? We look like shit. She ignored me. So what's next? Is Bo gonna come down and see you tonight? Yeah, when he gets off work. I have it all planned. I'm gonna sleep with him. You shouldn't, Lena. Why don't you wait? Haven't you heard good things are worth waiting for? Not in my neighborhood. I've always believed is if it's good for you, get as much as fast as you can. AC just rolled her eyes. The motel doors opened exactly at 8 a.m. and I headed for the sack. I sat on the side of the bed wondering why I went to that stupid party. I was gonna feel like shit when I woke up, and I would probably wake up in the afternoon losing another day. What I really needed was sleep. Why do I always think I have to be in the center of a potential good time? I just felt dirty and disgusted with myself. The only thing that ever helped was sleep. I laid there with a million useless coming down cocaine thoughts slamming against each other in my head. I finally passed out. The next thing I knew, the phone was ringing. It was 2 p.m. It was Bo.
Hey, Lena, am I waking you?
I hoped I sounded sexy, not hungover. Oh, no, Bo. I was just checking my eyelids for leaks.
What did you say, Lena?
I better lie. Oh, nothing. No, you're not waking me. I was just getting up. His voice was good to hear.
I wanted to let you know that I would be down around 10:30 tonight after I get off of work.
I was excited, but worked on sounding calm and sexy. I'll look forward to it, Bo. I hated knowing someone was showing up. I would watch the door like a nervous burglar. I wouldn't be able to concentrate on anything else but the door and who was walking through it. I lay there imagining what I would say to Bo when I saw him and wondering if we should have sex after the show. I always rushed everything. I mean, maybe we shouldn't. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I could hear my mother's words resonating from 20 years ago. Men like women who play hard to get. They don't respect loose girls. I was way past loose. It was more like unhinged. The large committee in my head was making it impossible for me to sleep. From experience, though, I knew if I lay in bed long enough, I would eventually fall asleep. The committee took a lunch break, and I finally fell into snooze land for the rest of the afternoon. Our final performance of the festival would be held at the Crown Tavern. It had been open for business over 50 years. I'm pretty sure that was the last time it was cleaned. When walking in, the aroma of stale beer hit you square in the nose. It was a dump, but it was the locals' favorite dump. When in Port Townsend, this was where you had a beer and hung out with the local color. Tonight, they had music. Us. I hate to admit this, but dumps are fun to play. I complain about them all the time, but in crummy bars, everyone feels less intimidated. So what if you dump your ashtray on the floor? The bar would hold 100 people in a pinch, and pinched they would be. There weren't enough chairs, and the ones they had didn't match and were in need of repair. A makeshift stage had been erected on the back wall. The help had to move the pool table out of the way. Still, I'd take a pool table over a sports bar's large screen TV any day. There were way too many times when we would come in to play, raring to go, only to hurry up and wait until the football game was over. It's just the entertainment. I mean, after all, we are talking football. Humiliating. Since entertainment wasn't a regular event at the town tavern, they were more than excited to see us. They went out of their way to make us comfortable. Good manners go a long way. Downbeat was 9 p.m. It was 8:30. The bar was packed with people in an abandoned state of fun. A place where a person ain't worried about spilling anything. Bo walked in at exactly 10:30. Man, you could set a clock by this guy. I sure did like a fella you could count on. I needed something steady in my life besides music and alcohol. On the breaks, Bo and I talked about music and the scariest subject of all, future plans.
Are you committed to singing for the rest of your life, Lena?
I was cautious. You mean, what else do I do besides sing? Am I going to get a real job someday?
No, I meant, is this your passion? Is this what you want to do? Is there anything else on your plate?
My attitude softened. I really haven't thought about it. I just seem to get up every morning and get ready to sing. I mean, that's what it's been like for as long as I can remember. Bo thought for a minute.
What about hobbies? Do you garden or read or go to the theater?
I was embarrassed. The answer was no. I would have to get up before 5 in the afternoon to do something else besides order a pizza. The way I remembered it, you needed sunlight to garden, and I only saw the sun under the most extreme circumstances. I only had one option, lying. I read, but most of the time I listen to music. I mean, music isn't just my career. I guess it's my hobby, too. Bo seemed satisfied with that piece of information.
What about kids?
I wasn't sure if I heard him right. What?
You know, children. Have you ever thought about having children?
I had my standard answer ready. Instead of children, I had bands. I laughed. Bo didn't. He just said,
Oh.
When I was on stage, he watched every gesture I made and heard every note I sang. Paula knew what was happening. She kept working me harder and harder. I was singing my big number of the evening. It seemed like such a good idea at the time, all about how I have to take medicine to pretend that I'm somebody else. This song was for Bo. I wanted him to know who I was. I wanted him to feel how much I could feel. Paula came up behind me right before the big climax in the number.
Sing your heart out, girlfriend. You deserve it.
I'm not sure why that was so profound for me, but the tears came, and I think for the first time in a very long time, I realized I was worth more than the way I had been treating myself. The sadness fell into my song. The tears were filling up my bottomless well, and at the moment, I was determined to share it with Bo. I gradually came out of some transcendent state. When I finished the song, the crowd stomped, whistled, and screamed. Bo was standing up, clapping with tears in his eyes. The women were applauding and crying. It was one of the few times I was able to get the fuck out of the way and let the song come through my heart. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's why I sing the blues. This is definitely why I sing the blues.
And so I prayed for my brothers and sisters today that the Lord may heal them. After I prayed for the Lord to heal them, I read the verse of James in the Bible where it says, "Is there any sickness among you? To call for the elders of the church. Let them pray over you and anoint you with oil in the name of the Lord." I read that, and I read, "The prayers of faith will save the sick." And when I prayed, I asked the Lord if He healed any of my brothers and sisters to show me some way or another that He had healed them. And I just went out of that chair just like that and was shouting and happy. When the good Lord is present, there's no room left for the blues.
The blues? Why, the blues are part of me. To me, Alberta Hunter, the blues are, well, almost religious. They're like a chant. The blues are like spirituals, almost sacred. When we sing blues, we're singing out our hearts. We're singing out our feelings. Maybe we're hurt or sick and just don't answer back. Then we sing or maybe even hum the blues. Yes, to us, the blues are sacred. When I sing, what I'm doing is letting my soul out. I'm healing the illness inside of me. The way I see it, there's plenty of room for the blues.
Motel backwards is let 'em. Finally, the gig was over. I'd been staring at Bo's lips for 2 days now. Kissing was becoming important, past important. Kissing had become absolutely necessary. The drummer, Sam, took my van so I caught a ride with Bo. As we drove to the motel, you could feel the sex-filled vibe in the car. I was nervous. Since I was hiding my drinking from Bo, I was way too close to sober. The last time I had been this straight before making love was when I was 16 years old. I wasn't sure I could do it sober. We walked into my room. It felt like we were in slow motion. I was acutely aware of every move he or I made. It reminded me of the dates I had in high school. The boy yawning into a stretch, the tension mounting as his arm tentatively came down around me into a kiss. I didn't have to worry for long. Bo was quiet, but not shy. Silent conspirators are the most dangerous. He put one hand on each side of my face and drew me to him. He bit on my lower lip, and with his tongue he carefully traced my lip line. He stopped suddenly, still holding my face. Bo gave my stare back a searching look.
Do you know this is special, Lena?
I was shaking inside. How could I say yes without him hearing the quivering? I was desperately trying to stay in charge of my feelings. I had lost control over everything else. All I could do was shake my head yes. Bo looked at me for a long time, and in a low, excited, husky voice he murmured,
Good.
You only need one sip of wine to know if the bottle is any good. First nights are usually passionate. The unknown, the unexpected triggers passion. Twice in my life, I've had a first night of sex that took me to a place I instantly knew was different than any other time, a more familiar time, a more intimate time. I knew he knew. Most of my dating history, I was sure it was a long way from my head to my heart. That night, there was no distance between the two. It had also become clear all the men before Bo had been prisoners held by me. Bo was going hiking in the morning. He had to leave after a couple of hours. I had fallen asleep. He gently rocked me awake.
Lena, I have to go. I don't want to. I have to. You were wonderful. This has been a special night. I'll make sure to call you when you get off the road. And you know, of course, that you can call me anytime. Actually, I would like that very much if you did.
He started to leave. God, I didn't want him to leave. I'd gotten so used to the voices in my head, I rarely acknowledged them anymore. At this moment, one of those voices was screaming, Don't go! Please don't leave me here alone! But no words came out. I could barely stand the thought that room would be empty again, and so would my heart. The committee would start in as soon as the door closed behind him. Bo, he turned. I thought, what the hell? I'd go for it. I'll miss you. He smiled.
I'll miss you too, Lena.
My stomach flipped. 16 days. Eternity had just begun. The door closed. I laid in the bed like an amputee feeling the phantom pain of a missing heart. I couldn't sleep. Making love sober was terrifying. I couldn't control any of the situation because it had all felt so good. I put a cassette in my old beat-up Sony recorder. A blues by S.B. Charters would do. But I'm glad to see the evening sun go down so I can go back home and lay back down. Some folks say the 4-day blues ain't bad, but the 4-day blues am the worst I ever had. Why is it when you fall in love, every single song, commercial, and television show applies? There I sat, connected to everything. Love, the big connector. I spent most of my life working on not being connected to anything. As I laid on the motel bed, I thought of how the women's show was part of me hitching my hopes onto a drunken star. How sure I was that between the whiskey and the music, everything would be all right. I had taken music as another one of my prisoners at the early age of 16. As long as I had music, then what did I need a family, children, husband, and a real job for? All I needed was to have a gig to look forward to, and the big black hole would be temporarily satiated. Eventually, the music alone wasn't enough, so I had to find some other outside forces to steal me away from the reality I so much despised. And that outside force called whiskey was beginning to rear its ugly and previously dependable head, leaving me alone with the music which I had to give the sole responsibility for my I'll be happy when I'm famous syndrome. It was horrible, because no matter what happened, it didn't feel like anything ever happened. I felt like I was constantly chasing my dreams around. The chase left me wondering what it would be like to be in the middle of my dreams, my life. Since music and whiskey were enough for a long time, what did love have to do with it? Love was an afterthought, a complication, and a distraction. I believed music would always be there for me, and since men never were, it seemed pointless to get carried away by some temporary jerk that might be performing freelance love. I could give myself whatever I needed. Thank you very much. So all you men out there, watch out, because if anyone will be doing the using, it will be me. But now there was Bo. All of a sudden, the room seemed so big. I realized how late it was and everyone else would be asleep. God, I had so many fears and feelings going on simultaneously. I was sure I would spin out of control. I sat and cried old tears, tears so old I couldn't remember what they were for anymore. I found myself looking into the mouth of the dragon. I had a cure for that. So what if the cure was temporary? It was better than feeling like this. I started to drink the 2 6-packs I had stashed. I had bought them earlier thinking Bo would like something to drink. Long-necked beer bottles were the only kind to drink out of when you're all alone in your room and you can't sleep. I let my head fall back and allowed the beer to leisurely run down its long brown neck and then race down my dry and lonely throat. I lit a Camel straight. "Hello, old friend," the smoke was saying as it curled around my head. I had plenty of company now, and I needed it. Needed my medicine because my heart was opening up. I was scared to death. I drank both 6-packs and smoked a box of cigarettes. I could pass out now. I was comfortably numb.
Growing everywhere you can go.
Praise the Lord. We want to capture the feeling of the Spirit more than the sense of the words. Let us kneel on the floor and plead wailfully in prayer. Lord, have mercy this evening. Give us more love in our hearts, O Lord. We're living in a war-torn world. Let the Spirit come. Open up our understanding and let your wisdom come down. Bring all war and fighting to an end. Allow us to understand each other.
I've always felt the blues was the facts of life being expressed to people that didn't understand the other fella's condition. If you sing more of them blues, you know, the real hurting kind, that's how you understand each other. I tell you, you sure can't fight your brother. No, sir, not when you're feeling it like that.
Trying to leave port. I did it again. The band was packed and ready to hit the road. The only thing missing was me. I had slept in, which was rare. Well, the term slept in was stretching it a bit. I had passed out and hadn't come to yet. Paula came into my room to wake me. She started to laugh.
Well, it looks like somebody got busy last night, 'cause girlfriend, this room looks just like a blues singer lives here. Look at this mess. There's empty beer bottles all over the floor.
Paula paused.
So did you and Bo get busy last night? Can the man do his business or what?
I lied about the mess. Yeah, it got pretty wild. I haven't had a chance to clean up yet. I couldn't believe I had done all this myself.
Girlfriend, look at these ashtrays. They're overflowing with cigarettes that have been smoked past the point of no return.
Even though Paula was just poking fun, I was growing uncomfortable with the subject of my bad behavior from the night before. "Give me 10 minutes. I'll be ready," I mumbled. My mouth was still sticking together. I felt like my brain had been vacuumed by one of AC's Kirby's. I felt real bad. But of anyone in the group, Paula was the one I could deal with no matter how bad I felt. Paula sensed my silent thoughts.
I'll let you get ready. If you need anything, let me know.
"I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Just give me a few minutes to meet up with you." Paula left. I struggled to get up and stiffly moved around the room, trying to hold my head straight. The throbbing was making it harder for me to think clearly. Whenever I bent over, the pounding was more than I could bear. I knew I needed to pack and get cleaned up in 20 minutes. I had to take a shower. Once again, the thought of water beating on my head did not seem all that appealing. And putting my belongings into the suitcase seemed impossible, a huge task I couldn't handle. It was time to be a bonehead. That was my fallback strategy. That's how I handled life with an extreme hangover. As soon as my throbbing head told me I couldn't deal with whatever was in front of me, I stopped thinking. I just did it. I had to make myself believe it didn't matter how I felt, it wasn't important. I had a job to do. Remember, how I feel isn't important. Screw discomfort. Just get ready. 1, 2, 3, fucking go. A half hour later, I met the band at an agreeable little cafe on the main drag. Tied back on each half-covered window were tidy blue and white checkered curtains, leaving a view of the street. I could smell bread baking. The scene was so regular while my head felt like it belonged to an alien. The walk into the waterfront cafe couldn't have been more surreal. I tried my best to look normal while joining the group.
How's everybody doing this morning?
AC answered without looking up. Fine,
Great.
Lenny said sarcastically. Paula had the same answer as always.
I'm tired.
Of course, Chrissy was right on target.
It's too fucking early. Shit, it's almost too early to eat.
Sam was positive.
Good.
The rest ignored me. Everyone had hit it too hard the night before. Even Paula got drunk on champagne. I looked around.
Where's Nina?
Chrissy once again assumed I was directing the conversation her way.
How the fuck am I supposed to know? It's too fucking early to know where the fuck I am, and you're asking me where Nina is?
Normally, I would have let her comment pass over me, but this time she had gone too far. So what if she had confided in me about Bick? How upset can you be with a guy who was named after a lighter and a pen? I had been stuffing her rotten attitude since the beginning of the trip, and that particular morning, I felt too bad. The hair on the back of my neck was standing at attention. Claw me and I'll claw thee.
Why the fuck do you always think I am talking to you? Jesus, I get so tired of your incessant bitching. We have to make a fucking deal. Make sure you hear me on this one. You can't say anything directly to me for the next 2 hours.
I was the only one that Chrissy backed down from. Not because I'm so bad and mean. It was because I hired her. Work was more important to Chrissy than anything else. She managed to act somewhat human to her employers. I could see her quickly thinking through these new and different rules to live by, even if it was just for a couple of hours. I hated losing my temper. Now Chrissy's face was turning red as she picked at her scrambled eggs. I had embarrassed her, and my outburst made everyone else feel uncomfortable. I felt like a bird with her wings clipped, lying on my back with my feet straight up, trapped in a locked cage. I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't. I was expected to keep the peace, but at what personal cost? It was becoming clear to me, for all these years, the people I worked with cared more about keeping a band going than my personal feelings. I don't know if it's supposed to be any different, but the realization was a scalpel slicing open my chest for heart surgery, and there I sat, unmedicated and wide open. I ordered coffee and looked for a way to escape the uncomfortable moment. So here goes, 20 miles into the woods and 20 miles out. I asked about Nina again.
So, has anyone seen Nina?
Sam answered in his peewee voice.
I think she went out with Mr. Chair last night. At least that's what Mr. Clock told me.
We all laughed. Thank God for Sam. He had come to the rescue once again. I didn't have to worry about Nina for long. She found us eating breakfast at the waterfront cafe. By this time, Paula and AC had christened her with a new name. AC went first. Nina, how was it? Was it anything like, riding a horse? Lucy was next.
You look like you've been riding something bigger than a horse, honey. Hey, Nina, we got a new name for you.
Nina was trying to handle all the attention she was getting way too early in the morning. But I have to give it to her because she gave it right back to us. This is when we got to hear about her lost weekend with the sound man seducer. She started in her slow drawl.
After the first night, I made up my mind that this was the guy, for the weekend, Andrew.
Lucy needed details.
Who's Andrew?
Nina gave her annoyed look and answered.
The sound man, Jesus, just let me finish. So anyways, he invited me out for coffee. He's a real interesting fella. Turns out he'd been living in the woods with a pet monkey for 2 years. He wrote a little bitty children's book about it. He even signed it and gave a copy to me. It's got a real sweet name, Mitchell the Magical Monkey.
The entire time she was telling me this story, I was thinking about Michael Jackson and his pet monkey. I couldn't help myself. I kept thinking of weird things grown-ups might do with pet monkeys, especially out in the woods alone. Nina continued.
Andrew pumped his own water, chopped wood for heat, kind of like my granddaddy back home. Except the difference was that Andrew's being so quiet and living off the land were, well, self-inflicted. I should probably tell you right here that little old Andrew hadn't had sex for 2 whole years.
That's when I thought, well, with a human anyway. Nina's embarrassment came out in a nervous laugh.
I was the first woman he had run into who was interested in him in the least little bit.
Lucky Nina. Nina always talked about sex. Actually, come to think about it, Nina didn't really talk about anything else, so we all knew she really liked it. The band was dead silent, so they wouldn't miss one word of this story. I kept quiet so she would continue with the rare bearing of her soul.
Andrew and I rolled round in the bed all weekend. Of course, we stopped when I had to show up for these gigs.
After she got done with this bizarre tale, I had to ask, "Where's the little monkey now, Nina?" She answered,
Well, I asked him about that. Where's that little monkey, Andrew? And he looked at me real sad with his brown eyes filling up with tears. He told me he couldn't talk about it, couldn't think about it. It was just too darn painful for him to go there.
Lenny couldn't stand it anymore.
So then, Andrew closes the door on his monkey past.
We couldn't stop laughing. It's weird being in a new town. Even weirder when you are in a strange town and getting out of a strange bed with a guy whose name you didn't quite get because he's so busy screwing your brains out since he lived in the forest for 2 years with a monkey named Mitchell. Facing all of us would be a bit much after that. Nina was going to respond, but Paula interrupted. She couldn't wait any longer.
Nasty Nina, our sweet little nasty Nina.
We still call her Nasty Nina. Paula wrote a song about it. It goes to show you can write a song about anything. Nina looked heartbroken. Saying out loud what she had done over the weekend, I believe, was an awakening of sorts for her. Here was a gal who had throughout the years added 3 rotten husbands to her credit, each time convincing herself this would be the man who would make everything all right. Nina was continuously picking out Mr. Right for herself, not realizing her picker was broken. I selfishly hoped mine was working, as little hungover thoughts of Beau stumbled to the front of my mind. Lenny had gotten our money from the club owner the night before. Normally, I do the collecting, but I had been in a hurry to leave with Beau, although Lenny was better than me when it came to collecting money because people rarely said no to him. I sat at the table trying to read the paper, but my concentration was constantly interrupted by thoughts of Beau. I didn't want to leave Port Townsend. I wanted to stay and be held by this man for the rest of my life. Every time I thought about the previous night, my insides would shiver a little. I looked around me. No one knew what I was thinking, how lonely I was beginning to feel. Though it was a sunny morning, everything had a dark shadow to it like a horror movie. Slime seemed to be hanging off the trees. Boy, this was some beginning to a road trip. Monday morning, and we were only 3 days into the tour. The trip had begun at 9 a.m. Friday. A lot can happen in a weekend. It was time to go. We'd been paid, found Nina, and had breakfast. It was my job to round up the division champs and, sadly, head the team out of town.